is from Reverend Audette Fulbright Fulson in Asheville, North Carolina. The days that come and carry away your spirit, your spark, bow down. Lay your head on the hard earth and let your brokenness join the death that is stirring there. Life rebels against death, takes the very dust of our bones and reweaves it into glory. You were made for life, and life does not intend to let you go. If you do need to fall apart, then do, for life will hold you in that too, and then will call you back from the four corners of the earth and will renew you with the water of the tears of others who, like you, weep for all that is lost. She will breathe back into you the breath that washes from the mouths of children laughing, from the lion's roar, from the exhalation of the trees. You will be reborn into the arms of beloveds, and together we will sing a new song.
Make us all where we are a sanctuary, each made holy, loved right through. With thanksgiving, we are a living sanctuary anew. We will not rest till the world is won. We will not rest till our work is done, till the world is safe and free from fear. We will not rest till peace is here. Make us all where we are a sanctuary, each made holy, loved right through. In thanksgiving, we are a living sanctuary anew.
Would you join me in this morning's prayer and reflection? The God that we know when we see hope and love and justice, be with us on this day. And hold us, a people longing for a better world, a people who think divisions need to stop, a people who love kindness and hope and justice and will love the hell out of any person who tries to stop it. Help us to make space for all who have made it possible for us to be here, in person, in this church, in this life. Help us to know that the world is better because we are here. Hold those who are flooded, hold those who are in drought, all those who are afraid of fire seasons. Help us to be grateful that the winter is coming for us, in the Louisiana sense at least. Help us to know we are sanctuaries and the world is better because we are here. Amen.
Make us where we are a sanctuary, each made holy, loved right through. With thanksgiving, we are a living sanctuary anew.
So welcome to worship in the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge. My name is Nathan. I'm one of your ministers. Reverend Chris Long is on a well-deserved vacation right now. During middle hour today, online folks, we're glad you're with us too. During middle hour, we have a class in room 6 about who makes things happen in this church. If you've ever wondered who makes things happen, good news for you, we have a room for you to be in to learn that. And in room 7 is our social justice team meeting that is open to everybody. And for those who don't know, 6 is way back there, and 7 is way back there, but a little over there. There's a few things also coming up. Next Sunday, we have 2 members of our preacher pack who are doing a service on grumpiness. We could not figure out how to have, with the state of the world, a really sort of upbeat Thanksgiving service, and so they chose grumpiness. And so we're excited to have that. And then after that, we're full-blown into Advent, which shocks me because it's still September. Starting on December 1st, we're going to have the first Sunday of Advent, and we're going to have a potluck after the 11:30 service that will lead into the Christmas tree decorating party. So come at any point on next 2 Sundays from now, and you may have food depending on the time you show up. Bring food if you'd like, and we're going to just have an all-day celebration at the church. The other thing is a member of this staff, our congregational administrator, Allison Hall, is going on a 2-week medical leave of absence. Everything is okay. It's her story to tell at the end of it, but that starts on Monday. So to be very specific, online folks too, y'all can't hear real well. Mike, no, this is better with me. Yeah. All right, so let me rephrase it, restate it. Allison Hall, our congregational administrator, is going on a 2-week medical leave of absence. She will not respond to text or emails or calls. If you need anything, Marla Elsie has graciously agreed to triage. And online people, the woman in the back who's been doing great work for the church for a long time waved. That's Marla. She has agreed to triage whatever needs we have. There's a group of people who are going to make all of the Allison things happen, but no text, no call. After December 1st, it's her story to tell if she would like to tell you how she's doing. But that's what's happening for the next 2 weeks. Everything's okay, but I just want you to know. The other thing, Penny, you're doing the service next week, right? I know, hang on. So, Penny, will you come up? I'm not honoring you, but I want you to come up. Melanie, you're also doing the service next week, but you just stay there. I would like to read a text Penny sent me yesterday, if I may. Is that appropriate? Is that okay? You didn't know you were... Penny texted me and said, "Can you, Nathan, make a vague-ish request to Cappy Landreneau to be at this church today?" So, I did, and it sounded very flaky. Cappy, would you come up? Cappy, if you don't know, has been a very active leader in this church for a long time. Come on up. And she's one of the co-chairs of the generosity team with Donna. And while she is not ever going to take full credit for this, she's never going to take full credit for this because there's a lot of people who made QueerFet happen. This was your idea, and you put so much love and thought, energy into making it happen. And so the QueerFet team wanted to give you a gift. All right. Go on, Mike.
You're supposed to be sitting still, but that's okay. If you've been attending the UU Connections Fair and paying attention to various committees, groups, and teams, you might already know that the Generosity Committee is one of the newest additions. This committee serves as an umbrella for several essential teams: stewardship, financial literacy, planned giving, data management, and fundraising. Perhaps you didn't notice all the details of its work, but you might have stumbled into one of their events, like the garden sale and the auction earlier this year, or just last month, the art and jewelry sale and the QueerFet. These events and the teams behind them take a massive amount of planning and volunteer effort. Many of us contributed our time and energy, and for that, let's give ourselves a round of applause because we did this. And what makes all these efforts truly exceptional is the extraordinary leadership that brings them to life. Capucine Landreneau, the volunteers who served alongside you to make stewardship efforts, auctions, spring events, and the incredible October events a success have come together to recognize your leadership. Cappy, what you've accomplished over the last couple of years is nothing short of magical. Your determination, thoughtfulness, and compassion for your teams have not only made these events successful, but also strengthened the church community and touched the lives of so many of us. To show our gratitude, we organized a small fundraiser of our own. After consulting with your wife, Vicki, to ensure that it would be meaningful, we're thrilled to present you with, and I'm going to pull these out, an aura ring, because she says you like tech stuff. So there's your aura ring. And I'm going to make a mess of this pulpit for the minister, but here we go. And a piggy bank of sorts. It says, "Be the change you want to see in the world." The extra stuff is in here. And I have something special for you to put in that piggy bank. All right, if I can get it. There it is. 50 cents, because you can always use 50 cents, inside joke. And a bill that many of us have signed. So thank you, Cappy.
Folks online, the people stood up and clapped for Cappy. We told her we need her to be a part of the service later in the service to make her get here. I still would like for you to do that, but we did make it up just to get you here. And I would like to repeat this at the 11:30 service. I don't know if I can pull that off, so just no. So thank you, Cappy. This ritual we have in our church is open to everybody, visitor and member alike. We invite those who wish to come forward either along the west or the east wall. Take a stone, let it represent whatever's on your heart or your mind, whatever you're carrying today, and place it in the chalice bowl. We now invite those who wish to come forward as we place stones. And we say together, with hope to make this a better world, we light this flame. Its light is the symbol of the power of love.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, through every land, by every tongue.
At a pride parade, they will march, walk, wheel, dance, shimmy and shake, block upon block of undulating color, flesh, banners, signs, clothing, or lack thereof, hands raised, hands linked, apart, together, singing, shouting, chanting, silent, joyous, tearful, nervous, afraid, proud, defiant, angry, happy, delirious, tentative, ecstatic, courageous, brave, free. The stereotype, the unrecognizable, the flamboyant, the ordinary, the parent, the child, the runaway, the lost, the lonely, the found, gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, queer, intersexed, questioning, allies, those who taunt and jeer, their banners of hate 10 feet tall. God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Burn in hell. The other slogans, straight but not narrow. I love my gay child. Siding with love. One day a year, 1 out of 365. Mardi Gras out of season. Festive, bacchanalian, tame, booths, food, shopping. Underneath there is a history, resistance. It was the marginalized of the marginalized, drag queens, transvestites, the butch and the femme did not sit down, but in their tired rage, stood up, rose up, fought back, holding the police captive in the bars they had come to raid. Their weapons, their oppression, their hands, beer bottles, Stonewall. 6 days of riots in New York, June 1969. A year later, a march in Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, LA, San Fran, and now, any weekend in June, anywhere around the world. Pride.
So let's start today a little out of liturgical season, not just with the fact that that was a Pride reading that usually happens in June. This whole past week, I kept coming back to the story of Jesus entering Jerusalem. This is usually the Palm Sunday story. So what happens is he walks in, he looks around, he sees everything that makes him furious, and he leaves. The next morning, before he goes back into Jerusalem, he is so angry. Oh, also, after he goes back to Jerusalem, that's when he overturns the tables. That's when the empire decides to kill him. I mean, that's really him seeing Jerusalem is what sort of brings about the end of Jesus' life. But he goes in, he sees Jerusalem, he gets so angry, he leaves that night before he does any ministry, and in the morning he sees a fig tree, and there's no figs because it's not the time of the year for figs, and he gets so angry he curses that fig tree. The next day it dies. I keep coming back to that one piece of scripture because right now I am looking at the world and I am not liking what I'm seeing. I am feeling angry at the division, the oppression, the backsliding, and I am prone to want to curse things for not being in the order they're supposed to be in, even if I am the one who wants figs that are out of season. So here's how this sermon is going to work, and to kind of fill you in on where we've been. Right after the election on a Thursday, we did a time to just pause and breathe. Last Sunday, we kind of talked about what we needed to do to be together, and this is the deeper dive on the election. So part one of this sermon is the feelings that we may be having as Unitarian Universalists. Part two are the realities of us as Unitarian Universalists. And part three is what we can do going forward. All three of these are as it relates to this election. So let me start with some qualifiers, because any good sermon has any number of qualifiers. I have been uncomfortable with how easily, openly, and fervently myself and many of my colleagues have talked about this election. There is a certain assumption about who we are as Unitarian Universalists, an assumption about who we voted for, about how much we earn, about how much education we have, and the assumption of who we are as a gathered people is just not true. Our theology, the belief that love transcends status quo, oppression, and hatred, and the promise that nothing puts you outside of that love, that transcends political party. This is a church where you have not just the right, but the spiritual obligation to pursue the truth as you understand it, all the while being humble enough to listen to other truths and admit when yours or mine falls short. For us to pretend our own work to understand that truth should only fall into one political party is at best disqualifyingly small, and at worst an affront to our faith. Because too often we let the partisan veneer gloss over political issues, we do not, in this church or in this faith, hold Democratic officials nearly as accountable as we do Republican officials. Please remember the complete lack of access that women have to reproductive and medical care in this state was signed into law by a Democratic governor. All of the deportations of immigrants that have happened over the past 4 years happened under a Democratic administration. So if you are looking for the first and simplest critique of this faith as a tool of partisanism, we do not often enough hold Democrats accountable for the ways they turn against the values of this faith. So then why do we and did we spend so much time and energy on this past election? Why did preaching on it last week make me cry at the service? Why did so many of you come up to me afterwards in tears? And why are so many of you here, and you came here before the prelude even started, which is not how this church behaves? You are a late people. I love you. I told Lee to play longer because I wanted you to be able to come in to hear that reading from the minister in Asheville. But you were already here. So why is that? Because in this election, we have experience of the person who ran for office. We saw what he did. We saw how he held onto power. We saw how he split up families. We saw how he targeted people of color and especially trans people. And we saw about how he brought chaos into the day-to-day lives of every American. And the rhetoric of this past election, leading him into power, promises more division, more violence, and more chaos. The last time all we had were promises, we did not have a history and a pattern. But this time it is reasonable to guess what will happen. And it is affecting people in distinct ways. One example that I would like to name, I have noticed in the past 2 weeks, this is probably true of men with a history of being abused, but I've noticed it with women who have a history of abuse, where the abuser was not held accountable, where the abuser was allowed to keep their job, where the abuser continued to flourish. I have seen people being brought almost to the brink. Has anyone else seen that? Not with yourself, but with others? The feeling I have is similar to what I imagine it feels like when you finally confront your abuser and are met with blank stares and denials. We saw the violence incited by our future president on January 6th. We saw the split up families. We saw the embrace of bullying and the junior high level type of behavior towards anyone who might be different. And many of us wrote a letter to our fellow Americans asking us to end the abuse, and we were met with the blank stare. In the coming weeks, we're going to make a shift in worship. Next week, we're just going to talk about being grumpy, right? Then we are all in Advent, the season of waiting for hope to come when it seems hard to find, the celebration of a coming new generation and a coming new hope when it feels like there is nothing to hope for. But for the rest of today, part 2 is I'm going to tell you about how wrong we are. Then part 3, I'll tell you about how right we are of the sermon. And I'm going to wedge in something that may not seem like it will fit, but I will ask you to stick with me to see that it will fit. So when we planned this service, we planned it to unveil something that we have been working on for a while. And while it may feel out of sync, just give me some time to sort of tie this all together, especially about how this is fundamental to the message of us as a people of power. It's about our legacy giving campaign, and we want to unveil a quilt that the team has built. We'll do that right after the offering. There are 2 things I need to name going into the offering. First, if you have not heard, lost in the shuffle, maybe intentionally, of our new legislative session that was intentionally scheduled for the day after the election, where they are trying to lower taxes on the rich and on corporations and to raise sales tax to cover it. There is a bill, SB 2, Senate Bill 2, and it is calling for children who are 14, 15, 16 years of age to be tried as adults. Am I missing something on that? I'm looking at our co-chairs. It's not in every case, but you need to know that it is in the legislature right now. Whether it survives or not is up to their weird stuff that they do and magic and whatever else, but it is there. The other thing that you should know is that on Tuesday, we got word from a member of this church right after it happened that a judge overturned the 10 Commandments law in Louisiana. Now, it's going to go to the appeals court and the appeals, I don't know, the federal court, whatever it is, the court that's in New Orleans, Fifth Circuit, and we know they're going to reinstate it, so it's going to go to the Supreme Court, and it's going to be who knows what. But for today, a judge looked at it and said it is a sham, and that, he didn't say this, but I'm saying that he should have said this, that the state has no right to pick scripture and force that onto children. When the ACLU was looking for plaintiffs, they called this church. The lead plaintiff was given because I connected them, and then one of the other families was connected because they are a part of this church and they wanted to be a part of this lawsuit. So this church was instrumental in overturning that law. So just know that. And with that, this month we are sharing our offering with the Louisiana Trans Advocates. And I'm going to see if I can get Mike to put the slide up. I've been trying to find a way to mess with them for a while, so this was the best that I could do. Anyway, I will ask you to very generously, this whole month we're sharing with the Louisiana Trans Advocates. Give very generously as this morning's offering is gratefully given and received. So I'd like to spend a couple of minutes talking about legacy giving. For those of you who do not either have enough money or feel like you have enough money, please don't check out just yet. Stick with us on this. Do you agree? Good, thank you. Legacy giving is the idea of putting in place some gift to your church after you die. First of all, everybody in this sanctuary has a will. Did you know that? It's true. It's what the state of Louisiana has decided will happen with your estate after you die. If you write your own will, you decide instead of the state. The generosity team had robust discussions about the idea of publicly naming people who have given legacy gifts to this church. Part of the discomfort, which I'm guessing might exist for some of you, is the fact that this might feel just another manifestation of American wealth worship. I would like to offer you a reframing that the generosity team had about this. Instead of putting a dollar amount to be a part of the legacy quilt, the conversation shifted to what about a percentage? So if you have an estate worth $300 or $500 million, if you put this church in your will, you will equally be on this quilt. Does that make sense? In other words, this quilt honors intention, not amount.
To add your name to our Legacy Society, all you have to do is pick up a packet at the member services table, which is out in the reception area, or you can do it on our website. You may indicate to us that you have already named the church in a bequest for a certain amount or percentage of your assets via your will. To leave the church a legacy without having to execute a new will, you may simply name the church as a beneficiary in your retirement plan or an annuity, a trust, or a life insurance policy in any percentage amount. Anyone who makes a provision for the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge in their estate plans is eligible for membership in the Legacy Society. If you are doing a new will, we have suggested language in the packet for you to consider with your lawyer. Please do it today. Pick up a brochure and complete a Legacy Society form that is available either at the member services table or online. You can just ask me and I'll be glad to work with you. Nancy Rabelais and Tom Lee also work with me, so we can provide you with the information you'll need on will preparation, planned giving, and endowment fund opportunities. Once you return your form, you will receive a pin to affix to your name tag, and can't see it, but I've got one on mine. And we urge you to wear it as an example to other people. We'll also add a leaf with your name on it to our Tree of Life quilt to recognize your legacy gift and encourage others to join you in ensuring their own legacy.
So I would like for us to display the quilt, and I have a strategy to keep this up here. Would you unveil it for everyone? You're not going to be able to read it, so don't try to look. Donna spent weeks trying to figure out how to make this happen. She eventually found it on the internet, right? An artist. And how did the names get on the leaves, Donna?
I had them embroidered on each one.
So I want to remind you about the imperfection of this quilt. No offense. It is incomplete. We ran a legacy campaign back in the spring of this year, and anyone who told us the church is in their will is included in this quilt. Donna went through the archives with Dottie and Connie and tried to pick every single name of anyone who has given a legacy gift to the church. And then we went to the minister emeritus, Steve, and asked him if we missed anyone. And it is incomplete. But it is as close to complete as we have now. So if you know of a family member or a friend who should be included, or if you would like to be included, please let us know. We're going to read the names in a second, and then we're going to sing a hymn that I'll invite you to rise, because I know I sort of robbed you of rising for the first hymn. But I want to name something with this. Some of the names of the people on this quilt have died a long time ago. Some are alive and in the sanctuary, and some have died recently. So as we hear these names, just know the complexity of what we are saying. So now we will read the names.
Can I say something?
Oh, we're not going to read the names yet. Please.
I just wanted to add, because I know Donna won't, but much of this legacy giving has been spearheaded by Donna through her own discernment. As she tried to think of how she wanted to leave her legacy in the church, I think she's been charting a path for us, and I think that was worth saying. Thank you.
So we will read the names.
Paige Akery and Sheila Brossman.
Elizabeth Davis and Marion Fatute.
David Lindenfeld, Connie McLeod.
Evelyn Robinson, Sharon Rockford.
Julie Ruxtell, Emily Toth.
Evelyn Tracy, Blanchard Ward,
Barry Wilson and Donna Yelverton.
and David Zimmerman. Let's sing. I invite you to rise, body or spirit.
How shall we come together? We shall come together singing. How shall we come together? We shall come together now. How shall we hold the suffering? We shall hold the suffering singing. How shall we hold the suffering? We shall hold the suffering now. How shall we teach the children? We shall teach the children singing. How shall we teach the children? We shall teach the children now. How shall we rise above it? We shall rise above it singing. How shall we rise above it? We shall rise above it now. How shall we light the darkness? We shall light the darkness singing. How shall we light the darkness? We shall light the darkness now. How shall we come together? We shall come together singing. How shall we come together? We shall come together now.
One other thing I was supposed to say a while ago, but I forgot. We found out, so our goal, we ended the pledge drive on September 31st, October 5th. We ended the pledge drive then, but we ended it with about 140 pledges not in, which is pretty typical for this church. And when we reached out last week to everyone who didn't turn in a pledge, 5 different people told us they turned it in online, and for whatever reason, in between Google and our website, we lost those. So if you have been reached out to and you haven't turned in, and we say you didn't turn in your pledge, but you did, just tell us you did. And I mean, tell us what it is, because it's in the internet somewhere. Does that make sense? Good. So I have a colleague and a friend who serves one of our churches in Houston who is an academic. He studies our faith and our country's history, and he was recently honored as a Mins lecturer. This is a distinguished academic honor for Unitarian Universalists. Every year there's like 1 or 2 people who get named for this lecture, and they do the lecture kind of almost like a tour all over the country. And the topic of his lecture was part of the conversation I had with him. I was asking him about my concerns, even a couple of years ago, about how it feels like this country is tiptoeing towards fascism. And he stopped me and he said that too many Unitarians think we're going towards fascism, and that's wrong. Not morally wrong, like he thinks that's incorrect. Fascism, according to him, by definition, is an overtrust and an over-reliance on the federal government. The idea that you may hate Mussolini, but at least he made the trains run on time. He said what we are seeing is a resurgence of the Confederacy. This tendency is marked by a severe distrust of federal government and of experts. It's a reclaiming of white supremacy and the use of violence and rhetoric and fear to bring it about. Oh, this is part 2. This is the down part. And then we'll do the up part at the end. While I think he is closer to right, I'm not sure I entirely agree with him. So let me deviate for a minute and I'll come back to my disagreement. I want you to know what I have seen from you this past week and a half. Bear in mind, I am used to Unitarian Universalist hyperbole when it comes to election results. And everything I'm about to describe does not feel like the same hyperbole I have seen. I have had members come up to me, and also every one of these is multiple members, so it's not one individual. I have had members come up to me in tears, telling me that they do not want to be distrustful or angry towards their neighbors or friends or family anymore. Some of you are talking about leaving the state or this country, not about an ideological issue, but it's so that you and your family can be safe and have access to medical care. Some have talked about their parents worrying about the resurgence of white violence in their communities and are making preparations right now in case it comes back. These are not theoretical policy disputes about taxes or about size of government. These are fears fundamentally manifested by the intentional stoking and intention of imparting this level of terror on some portion of the American population. Now, here is where I deviate from my colleague. While the patterns of white supremacy, power amassing among men and white people and the rich, the use of violence, fallacy, segregation, ideology to reinforce this idea, not to mention the use of fake divisions to distract while the wealthiest are going to grab even more money in these next few years. Those patterns were true throughout this country, not just in the Confederacy. Did you know that when a church splits, whatever caused that new church to be born is within the DNA of that church? So I used to be a religious educator at a church in Austin, and they split with a church in the 90s because they wanted more Sunday school for their kids. Typically, a church of 100 has 25 kids, right? About 25%. In this church that split over valuing religious education for their children, there were 180 adults and 150 kids. A church that splits because of a fight, that new church will have fighting and distrust in its DNA, probably through the duration, or at least for a very, very long time. This country was founded by people, many of whom belonged to churches that would later become Unitarian Universalist, who always struggled with not only who was American, but who was even allowed to be considered a person. Many of our religious and national founders said that white people were superior to black people. Even if you look at the most abolitionist of the abolitionists in the Unitarian Universalist movement, did not believe black people were people, they just didn't believe in slavery. The terminology of white and black was invented in this country during Bacon's Rebellion in the 1600s, when white indentured servants and black enslaved Africans united to try to overthrow the power elite. And in response to that, they made white indentured servitude finite, and they made enslavement of Africans generational. So now there is an economic incentive and a safety incentive for white and black people to not unite together and to demand a more equitable world. And many of our religious ancestors allowed this intentional divisions to manifest in the ways that Unitarians thought of themselves as better and more elite than most of those other people. And we see it manifesting now in how much we still try to separate ourselves. How we've decided that everyone who voted for our former president was somehow tricked or stupid or evil. Many of them were and are not. Many of them made a careful and informed choice with who to vote for. And our reconciliation with this election and this new fear-based economy hinges on, one, acknowledging that this was a choice of this country, and two, us being able to see our neighbors and our family as manifestations of ourself. So I disagree with my colleague that this is a reaffirmation of the Confederacy, because there are so many changes in this world, and especially after us not facing the existential trauma of COVID and of climate change. I think us as a country are feeling scared and reverting back to the patterns that we knew. And there is another element in this. When this country was founded, most of our religious ancestors, who happened to be the white Puritans, were the religious extremists. When I teach a new member class, y'all know the shouting preacher people with the Bibles they bend to yell at you? We tell the story, the Puritans came over here for religious freedom, but I like to think of the English kicking them out because they were just too irritating. We have some historians here. I'm going to find out if I'm right or wrong later. But this country was founded with fundamentalism and religious extremism as a part of its DNA. There is a John Wayne style of extremist Christianity that has embraced Donald Trump's presidency as divinely inspired. And we can trace that trend all the way through this country's founding. And we, Unitarian Universalists, when this was happening over the last 30 years, were so distracted with our own weird little fights about who should say a certain thing and who shouldn't, and whether we should have one God or multiple gods or no God, or all of these fake fights that we had. And our desire to distance ourselves from anything that sounded like religion or church, that we have ceded power to the more oppressive manifestations of religion. The promise of this religion stand in direct contrast to the idea that there was only one way to do religion, and that it's rigid, divisive, hateful, and that it uses shame to consolidate power or to force you back into the closet. The promise of this religion is that we are willing to go into the city to see how faith has been used to marginalize, to hurt, to consolidate power, and to kill. And we have said there is a better way. And it is okay to get so angry at what you see that you leave and you curse a fig tree before doing the ministry of building beloved community. When we get back to the roots of this faith, it is the truest manifestation of Jesus' ministry that said love for neighbor, love for self, and love for God, or if that term doesn't work for you, love for the world as it could be. The desire to keep hope, the desire to build beloved community, that transcends any manifestation of state-sponsored violence or division. Right where you're seated, let's do this next hymn.
Ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est, ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est.
So here's the great minister trick. You fly the plane down, but you got to pull it back up. I've not always been able to do that, so we're going to do it in this last section. So I need you to go up with me. Here is where I see the hope. I have never met Evelyn Tracy. She died before I ever came here. I don't know anything about her except what a handful of church members have told me. And I know that when she died, she left a portion of her money to this church, and that money was used to pay for the first 2 years of my salary. The reason that I am here, and the reason why Reverend Chris is here after you called me as senior, is because of the jumpstart that her legacy gift gave to this church. The stability of this church can be set up for generations when people are intentional with these type of gifts. And here's the theological part of this. To be intentional about your gift, you have to think about your own mortality. And you have to plan for what will happen even though we don't want it to happen. And if this election has shown us nothing else, it is that we desperately need this faith. We need it, and so does the city, and so does this state, to know that we are loved, to know that we are worthy of love, and that no one is pushed back into the closet. And us having this church here in Louisiana is important because Louisiana has some gifts to offer this country. You didn't know that, did you? As it relates to this election specifically. And it is especially powerful when it manifests through a Unitarian Universalist lens. Because we in this state actually know what to do. We've already had an elected governor who acted like a dictator, who had his own media empire that protected his narrative, who refused to step down when he didn't like the people who were elected after him. He split this state for generations. We're going to play a little game. Who was that? When I was 12, I had to wrestle with the fact that this state almost elected the former Grand Wizard of the KKK to be the governor of this state, who was, no, wait, don't say his name. We already had a governor who went to prison for nepotism and embezzlement. And we elected him to be governor again. We'll do his name. We know how to do this in this state. So here is what I think, and also, this is not in the sermon. I'm going to mark it because I think this is interesting. One of the things that this country loves is having this sort of cloak over the real narrative. And one of the things Donald Trump has done is pulled that cloak off. And we have had that cloak pulled off here for a long time. Because how many of you had the bumper sticker that said, "Vote for the crook, it's important"? Right? People who are younger or didn't have to grow up with this, when Edwards, the crook, was running against the racist, that was the bumper sticker people had, and it worked. He won. So here's what I think we need to do. First thing we need to do is we need to solidify this church in every way that we can. I listen to, this is actually a good theological offering to you. If you have not done a search on YouTube of Unitarian Church and sorted by within the last 2 weeks, November 10th was some of the best theology I have ever heard delivered by Unitarian Universalist ministers. And usually I've got the good ones and the ones who kind of deliver junk. Everyone was doing good theology on that Sunday. So if you want a deep dive while you're doing your dishes or working out or trying to go to sleep, or you want to just sit and watch it, Look for any Unitarian Universalist church last Sunday. I don't know what they're going to do this Sunday, but last Sunday was phenomenal. And a lot of them mentioned what I'm about to mention. If you have not turned in your pledge, please do so. If you can increase your pledge, please do so. Actually, one of the richest churches, they said, this Sunday we're all doubling our pledge. That was his call. I don't know how many did it, but there is an imperative that we build this church. We are at the point in our fundraising where we can make last year's super thin budget. But we still need $140,000 for us to truly run the church in a healthy and sustainable way, which sounds like a lot if you do the math on how many are sitting in this room, but this is a church of 400 members. We can get there pretty easily. If you have the capacity, consider increasing. If you can leave a legacy gift to this church, please do so. This is a unique type of commitment to an institution where you are willing to look at your concrete finances and say, this portion I'm going to give so that this church will exist. This is not abstract. This is as numeric as we can do. The second thing we need to do to build this institution is to work on ourselves. I said it last week, I'm going to say it again. We need you in therapy. All of you, not because there's something wrong with you, but because all of us you deserve, and we need to do the work on ourselves so that we can see the patterns in our life and we can get healthy. We need you as mentally, physically, and spiritually healthy as the circumstances allow you to be. If you can afford to, and maybe if you cannot, we need you not to overwork. If you can keep your job and go home exactly when work ends, go home. Go be with your family. Watch really good and really bad TV. Both of them. Cook the most important food that you ate as a child. Plant more than you need and share what you have. People will be targeted by this next administration. People are currently being targeted in the state of Louisiana by our current administration. This church needs to be a place that is safe, especially for trans people. That means we have to work on understanding how to use pronouns, how to make space for people that are meant to be in this church. It also means inviting people to this church. We have to stop separating ourselves from our neighbors and our families. If your family or their politics have caused you pain and it is safe for you to do so, I encourage you to please go talk with your family. And it is okay for you to look at this city or this country and to not recognize it, or exactly to recognize it for what it is. It is okay for you to see religion being used as a tool of the state, and it is okay for you to see all of these things and get so angry that you leave and you curse a fig tree even though you know it's not the time for figs. I could not figure out how to get the readings for this service, and so I floated through all sorts of poetry and scripture, and nothing fit. Nothing seemed to land until something occurred to me, and it points to the theological answer to these times. This upcoming week will mark the Transgender Day of Remembrance. We are not having a formal service at this church this year, not because we do not value it, but because with all of the things, we just ran out of time to make it happen. But this service is traditionally a service that acknowledges every trans person who is killed in this country and in this world. And what is significant about the service is many of these trans people die or are killed, and their family will not acknowledge them for who they are. And this service is a time for them to be acknowledged. Here is what I figured out, though. I found all of the readings for today by sorting through. We have this little cheat sheet. It's called Worship Web. If you want to find all the readings we usually use, you can just sort Worship Web, and it tells you every Unitarian Universalist reading on any particular holiday or event or whatever. And I sorted for Transgender Day of Remembrance, and every reading today is about pride. Because that is the core of this theology. God is and has always been big enough for there to be more than just two Mattel-driven Barbie and G.I. Joe genders. Human biology has always been more complicated, has been so complicated that there is more than just simply male and female. There is something deeply theologically beautiful about a church that lets people grow into who they are supposed to be and still lets them thrive. Because that is letting God's complexity manifest. Think about how scary it was for those early universalists who came to a place where if you did not behave, the winter was going to kill you in this country. And they said, we don't need the punishment or hell to make you behave. We think you're good enough just as you are, and you're going to behave, and we're all going to survive, and we're going to be better for it. The thing that Louisiana has to teach this world is that while things are tough right now, Christmas is coming, and Mardi Gras is coming, and festival season is coming. One of the greatest forms of resistance is an unending joy. It's looking in the face of collapse and mortality and crushing defeats, and it's still remaining committed to celebrating this gift of being alive. It is a time to go into the streets and to claim back what has always been ours. That you are loved, that you are worthy, and that this joy is greater.
Why do we march? For those who are not able, for those who have been murdered, for those who are ravaged by disease,
for those who are still beaten, still taunted, still harassed, still victims, still targets.
Why do we march? Because some truths ain't self-evident, because all men ain't protected equal, and we love a good party.
They will march and walk and wheel and dance and shimmy and shake block upon block of undulating color, flesh, banners, signs, clothing, or lack thereof.
Hands raised, hands linked, apart, together.
Singing, shouting, chanting, silent.
Joyous, tearful, nervous, afraid, proud, defiant, angry.
Happy, delirious, tentative.
Ecstatic, courageous, brave, free.
We've done this before, we're doing it again. Let's sing.
I want to be ready. I want to be ready. Want to be ready when joy comes back to me. I've been downhearted. I've been downhearted. I've been downhearted. I won't be down for long, 'cause I want to be ready. I want to be ready. Want to be ready when joy comes back to me. I want to be ready. I want to be ready. To be ready when joy comes back to me. Too long crying, too long crying. I won't cry anymore, 'cause I want to be ready. I want to be ready. Want to be ready when joy comes back to me. I want to be ready. I want to be ready. To be ready, want to be ready when joy comes back to me. When surrounded by midnight, surrounded by midnight, surrounded by midnight, the dawn's gonna warm my face, 'cause I want to be ready. I want to be ready, want to be ready when joy comes back to me.
the weather's going to get better. It's going to be hard, but the world is going to get better. And it's better because you are here. Amen. Go in peace.